Here with another episode of Pomelo Pitch Deck with a friend of mine, somebody who I used to get to talk to all the time and rarely do anymore, and that kind of makes me sad. However, what you guys are doing in EOS recently with the ability to have this funding from not only Pomelo, but always, like the EOS Network Foundation, building, shaking, moving, all of these things. I'm really excited to have you here to dive into what I think is a really important proposal. And I know something that you've been working on for a really long time, championing for a really long time in the space, the Eos Io Ibc proposal. I had to practice that, by the way, because I kept messing it up. So
it is
welcome to the show, John. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Appreciate you putting this together. So the Eos Io Ibc proposal, it does kind of go back for a while for us. We have been exploring different IBC solutions among Eos Io chains and haven't really been happy with what is to offer out there. And we still feel like there is a missing piece in the ecosystem of a neutral, standardized Eos Io protocol that we can all use to communicate. And this protocol was actually already built in the Cosmos ecosystem, and they just call it the IBC protocol. So, and it's meant to be completely neutral, like blockchain neutral, right? So our plan at this point in time is to implement the IBC protocol for Eos Io chains, and which would allow efficient trustless communication between Eos Io chains with the added benefit of automatically connecting us with the Cosmos SDK ecosystem and any EVM chains that have also implemented the same protocol. So we think that, and the plan is basically to have a bounty. So Pomelo is going to be launching a bounty system next year. So we plan to leverage that bounty system with the funds that we raise through this proposal, this grant, to fund development of that.
Sorry. And so I had actually, it's funny because I had Hernan on from EOS Starter yesterday, my time, but maybe today your time. And we got talking, and I introduced you into the ecosystem. And Hernan said, please support us over here at EOS Starter. But if you're going to support anyone, please go support John, because they've been doing this. It's so he shouted you out. Like, you guys have been working hard on this. Now, when you say Cosmos, is that the one that's like kind of being hyped up right now? That's connecting Terra and Solana and all these other ones as well. Is that the one that you're referring to?
Terra is built on Cosmos SDK, which is kind of like what you call Eos Io in that ecosystem.
Right.
And so Cosmos was the first chain, and there's hundreds of them. The Terra is one of them, and there's a bridge between Terra and Solana now.
Right.
But I don't think that. I think that's actually, there's a few different bridges in that ecosystem. There's one bridge called the Wormhole Bridge that's run by Solana validators that recently added Terra. So you can go from Solana to Terra to Ethereum using the Wormhole Bridge. That's actually just a trusted Oracle setup. That's basically just, you have these trusted validators on each side, which is, not really ideal, but, they've coordinated that. But Terra also has a direct IBC connection using the IBC protocol with all the other Cosmos chains.
Right. And so, I guess being back in this space from the early days, this is kind of what we all expected, right? And I remember there was some talk around it. I think a lot of us expected a little bit more development from the Block One front on getting this to work, right? Like being able to port seamlessly between a variety of these Eos Io chains. And in the end, kind of what happened was what we saw was a lot of these other Eos Io chains kind of, go into segregation amongst themselves and develop by themselves and doing these things, finding their own funding mechanisms. And it's kind of sad. So what you guys are looking to do with this kind of is to bring back that like connection between all of these ecosystems. And so you said that you're going to do it like through an interesting way as well. So this 50K matching at the bottom, do you want to maybe go into a little bit more on how that will work with the bounty system?
Well, basically, we've already built a prototype of this IBC. Well, it's more than a prototype. I mean, it's we improved what is already being used between Telos and Eos, which is a very simple bridge that's used by tswaps.io. It's just a trusted Oracle setup. And we've improved that code to make it, more flexible and more expandable and things like that. And we had a Telos Works proposal to do that work. So we kind of considered our work to be done, but the price of Telos exploded. So the value of the funds we received from that proposal expanded a lot. And so that expansion of value really gave us the chance to sit back and think like, well, what we really want to do is this, this is a lot more work, but maybe we have a shot at it, if we can get the communities to come together around this, right? So that's where these matching funds, you're seeing the 50K matching funds is coming from. It's from a Telos Works proposal, which is going to be, quite a story to see, funding from these two ecosystems coming together to build something that benefits us all, right? That's a nice narrative, right? So
yeah, especially
really
for people who have been here for a while, right? And like that, there's always been this kind of like push and pull kind of thing between the two. So I like that. And I actually wasn't aware of this. Of course, you probably were because you're genius in your own right. But like I didn't know that like this was generally focused on all of Eos Io, this whole Pomelo grants thing. I just had kind of assumed, as many have, even some of the people who have been on the show, that you had to prove value for the EOS mainnet. But that's actually not the case. When you're filling out the application form, what you need actually is to prove value for the whole Eos Io infrastructure. And so the ability to do that cross chain, within the Eos Io ecosystem is huge. And I think this might be a first in the sense that this will be, with this matching, a dual funding kind of mechanism from two very different chains. This might set the bar in a whole new way too, right?
Yeah. If you donate to this grant, not only are your funds being matched by the matching pool, but they're also being matched by us. So you're getting more for your donation if you donate to this. And I kind of expected that we would have more interest. I think maybe because this is a more developer-centric feature, it's less popular to the masses because it's harder to put your hands on, I think. So, that's been a little disappointing, but, there's more opportunities in the future for us to continue funding development of this.
I mean, I almost want to call the other blockchains out and say, look, don't get beat out by Telos. I think you guys should throw in some matching Wax. I think you guys should throw in some matching Ultra. I think all of you guys should throw in some matching into this so that we can get this party started. We can get it on the road because that's what Eos Io was intended for. It was never intended to be a segregated chain. So, right. And so we'll be matching the first 50K funds donated to this grant one-on-one before the matching partner funds are added. Any additional funds will go towards development costs, auditing the code, incentives, and liquidity for IBC assets. Let's get to 50,000 so that we can have 100 grand at least, right?
I know, right?
But yeah, so implementing the existing IBC standard brings with it many advantages. But what are the things that are lacking in it, maybe specifically, if we're speaking to the developers out there who watch this back later? What are the types of things that you're hoping that people will come in and improve upon?
Improve upon what? I'm a little
Like, so this is like
confused.
a kind of a development fund, right? Like you're
Mhm.
going to offer other people to come in, and you're going to offer them to like help with the code and build things out alongside yourselves,
More
you
than
know?
that, I don't have the time, or I mean, this is very advanced work,
Right.
and I have, other things that I would rather work on, but we have the funds to take it all the way, if someone wants to take the mantle and put the time in and do it. So,
Yeah. So like what kinds of people, I guess like we're focused kind of on the IBC like pitch deck part of the protocol, but like in my mind, we're kind of finished that because like I don't see any reason why anyone would not support this. If you're in the ecosystem, like you should be supporting development. So I kind of want to dive into like what this what the process of is it after I guess 7 days when this wraps up, right?
mhm.
These funds that are donated, the quadratic funds that are donated, will also
Yeah.
be released to you, and then there'll be that matching to that point. So, what kind of developers are you looking for? What kind of things?
Mhm,
Like, are
mhm.
you regulating this at all? Do they just come to you and they say, "Look, this is what we're going to build," and
Yeah.
then you support them, or do they have to go through an application process, or
No, I
how does
want
that
it to
work?
be, I mean, more like when Block One did the grant for the EVM, they basically just announced it and they're like, whoever, meets this criteria and turns it in first will offer you the grant, something like that. But the intention is we want to use the grants functionality that's going to be added to Pomelo early next year. So and we're going to be in the next season of Pomelo as well and continue to grow the funding pool. And, maybe hopefully we'll have some other donors that'll pitch in to help fill the pool, and let's try and get it up to at least 100,000. I mean, the EVM contract was 200,000, right? I mean, that would, and this is a similar amount of work. So,
Yeah, very cool. So, and I'll like go back to the first episode of Pomelo Pitch Deck too. You guys are doing some other interesting things with, IBC in your own right. What you've been doing with Boyd on the EOS mainnet and with Telos with the Boyd universe and the Boyd game. Like this is something that's going to directly impact what you guys are doing too, and what a lot of other projects are doing. So like definitely worth checking out. I know you guys had a couple of different proposals in the works, but like I like the fact that this one's kind of open ended. Like I like the fact that this one, like you said, isn't necessarily something that you're going to be doing yourself. It's more of another funding mechanism to get people involved, to get the ecosystem jump started, to get those
mhm.
things happening, right? Like obviously you're working very directly with the Boyd universe proposal that we talked about, and with Daclify too, which we talked about in the first episode. Are there any other proposals that you'd like to talk about today? Because I think you guys have one more as well.
Well, we have the EOS power up on there.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I knew the obvious one, right? Yeah. So sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the EOS Power Up, tell us a little bit of a history about that. Like you developed it yourself to kind of tackle people not having enough resources and having to go in and stake them. So you can go to eospowerup.io. You can put in your account, and it gives you enough, enough ability to do like some simple transactions, obviously like not go in and play dice or something like that, but to get the ball rolling so that you're not stuck there.
Oh
And
yeah.
then from the first EOS network foundation, sorry, not, I apologize, it gets confusing, from the first Eden on EOS trial elections, Chris Barnes came in, and you yourself actually had the proposal too. But Chris Barnes came in and he donated some funds to further develop the
I
eospowerup.io.
mean, mostly all of the funds, pretty much all of the funds, except for a little bit went to Gray Mass. But yeah, pretty much all the funds from the first Eden trial run went to development of the EOS Power Up Telegram and Discord bots.
So, and I know it's a very, I know it's a very, well used. I use it all the time actually, thing, and you can also kind of automate it so that it powers it up automatically. There's a fee involved. So, what are your plans for EOS Power Up? .io. What are your plans for the development, for further development through that system for this one? If you, maybe we can go through that as well.
There's a lot of ideas. This proposal is kind of vague. It's just kind of like, here's, things I might build. And the reason is because, like, I just want to build stuff that people want. So I am like, here's a list of ideas I had, and here's a link to the Telegram to let me know what what should I build next. So that's kind of, and I'll just, however much funding I receive, I'll just kind of allocate my time accordingly to build these features out according to interest from the community. I haven't honestly gotten a lot of feedback from people about what they would like next. I have some ideas about what I would like to build next and what would have a lot of impact.
Okay.
So.
Well, and I mean, like, here's the thing. Look at this, all right? Like, so just to call out the funding, right now, we're close to almost $10,000 for an estimated match of the funding, right?
Mm-hmm,
and so, like, you have one of the, in my opinion, best developers in the whole space. There's a few of you that have just been grinding like crazy. Like, the guys over at Gray Mass is another one, but the guys at Boyd, like, there's a few others. And you have created this proposal, EosPowerUp.io, of a brand that kind of, most EOS people will have used or they know. And you've got this $10,000, matching pocketbook, bank account type of scenario. And you're not quite sure what you're going to do with it, but you're leaving it open-ended to the community to come in and interact with you in the social channels and tell you what you want. Definitely get in there. You've got 7 days, but get in there if you haven't, added your 2 cents on how you think that, like, EOS Power Up could develop the ecosystem as well. And I mean, I like EOS Power Up IO, and I think one of the few ones that I've actually gotten finished, because I need to go back in and donate some more to some other projects as well. But that was EOS Power Up IO, and I also did Eos Io Ibc as well. But definitely take a look at those two proposals, because I think that they're really important for the ecosystem in general, and how we develop from here. And it's, to me, it's kind of like, how do we look at it? Do we just dole out money to projects for marketing? And these freak me out there. Do we just dole out projects for marketing and hope that things turn around? Well, there's, some incentive to do that. But, like, moreover, I think what we really want to do is we want to, like, add value to the ecosystem, to the infrastructure, to the technology, to the way that, EosIO is actually used. And I just want to give a personal thank you, John, to being on top of this, not just from the time and the beginning of this Pomelo, but, like, way back in the day of the ecosystem and the technology and the implementations that you guys have built. I think, in my opinion, are above and beyond just your own little, corner of the internet, which you've been looking at with Boyd, which again is an amazing project. So,
did you have yourself? Did you have any feedback on the features that I listed for further development of EOS Power Up?
So again, like, I'm not looking at it necessarily from a technological point of view, because that's not my forte. But what I want to see actually is if it's at all possible, because I think IBC is interesting. The tokenomics behind IBC is interesting. Like, the way that we move tokens from one ecosystem to another when it comes to things like DeFi are definitely interesting. But personally, what I'd like to see, honestly, and I don't even know if it's feasible, is a way to be able to move NFTs or assets from one blockchain to another. And I think, like, a true IBC when it comes to NFTs is going to be huge, right? Like, once we solve that problem, enter the gamers, right? Like, and that's going to blow this whole thing, out of the water. And I like the fact that, like, as a project, you can release different NFTs on different blockchains. but there is no real way to track like a total number of assets and which one is mint 1 to mint 10, for example, right? If you've got like 10 assets that are tracked across 5 different Eos Io blockchains,
Yeah.
and I buy a mint 1 on Eos, and I want to transfer that over to Telos, or I want to transfer that over to Wax, what happens? Oftentimes, I'm going to have to deposit it into a contract. It's going to have to come out on the other end. Is the mint number there solid? Like, I'd like the ability to just be able to transfer an asset from one blockchain to another without like a holding contract, and my asset gets released on the other side with the same value, with the same mint, with the same attributes, and all of that. So I know it's no easy task to undergo, but
there's
would be what I'd like to see.
Well, there's a Telegram group for Eos Io IBC as well, and I actually got Jonah from Atomic Hub in there, and I was asking him, what did you guys think about IBC for NFTs? How to implement that, and he said that's something that they haven't really tried to tackle. It's a kind of a large task, but he had some ideas. He had some good pointers. But yeah, it's kind of like we got to get the basics in there first before we start trying to figure out NFTs, because it is definitely a challenge.
But yeah, 100%. And but that's the nice thing about this proposal that you have with the Eos Io IBC. Like somebody like Jonah, who's very knowledgeable in the space, or his team of developers, could come in and they could use those funds, those matching funds, to develop something like that, and they could get funded for it. So I like it. I really do. I mean, short and sweet. I'm gonna have Jonah on the channel not next week, but the week after. So I'm definitely gonna bring this up to him.
Okay.
But by then we'll know kind of what's happening with the final numbers, I would assume, for Pomelo, because I think there's only 7 days left of this first season.
Yeah.
So.
The thing with cross-chain NFTs is that there's a few different ways to do it, but ultimately, in order for it to really be usable, it needs to be integrated in the marketplace, right? So the marketplace has to have a nice UI that explains it and makes it simple. So, it doesn't matter if we build something that works great. If it's not something that's built into the UI and people trust, then it's not really going to get used. So it really requires a lot of buy-in from them to spend even if they don't actually build it, just for them to add a page to Atomic Hub where you can use the contract. You know what I mean? So
I mean, like we often have Nefty on our show, like, to talk about that, and like they're doing some really interesting things with like cross project blends, for example. You can take one NFT and you can blend it now with another project, and you can have like this blend across multiple projects. I mean, what happens to the space when you can blend across multiple blockchains, right? like this is right. And I think I get it. Like, I get that we're shooting way over where we could potentially go, because there's a lot of things that need to happen before that. But that's kind of what excites me. And I think in terms of it's funny to me because I remember back in the day when Crypto Writer, they released their Finny coins on Eos and on they released their Finny coins on Eos and on Wax on Atomic Hub, and I think they got delisted or they got banned because people were worried about why do you have the same thing on both chains, right? Back in the day we had Boyd NFTs on both Eos and Wax, but they were a different series. They were a different set. They looked completely different. They had none of the same attributes. Even the way that they were sold and put out there into the market was completely different. But with a lot of these projects who want to go cross-chain, you're 100% right. There needs to be a way to differentiate across these chains and to be able to connect them. And so definitely a UI interface is necessary, because we don't want to go back to the days where we're looking at blockchain from a C+ perspective, where there's a black screen and you have to type in commands just to open your computer. But yeah, definitely thank you for all the things that you do for the ecosystem. If you don't know, what's going on, definitely check out the proposals on the Pomelo grant site, but also, hop into the Boyd Telegram community and subscribe to the Boyd Twitter. And there's a lot of interesting conversations, and it's probably one of the most forward-thinking, nicest teams out there in the space, heads down, working not paying attention to much else other than just like expanding this ecosystem through any means necessary. So thank you for that, John.
Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
And we'll see all you guys next time on the next episode of Pomelo Pitch Deck. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I know we got something good. So thanks for joining us, and take care until that time again.